Hi folks, welcome back to Bougie Comfort Food. I'm Mary Landry, your host, and today we're going to be making red beans and rice with sausage. Now, for some of you, this may be an old hack recipe. You've already done it, you know how to do it, good for you. But for some of you folks, y'all like red beans and rice, go down to Popeyes and get your side of red beans and rice, and it's just good stuff. Well, this is my recipe. I learned this about 30 years ago, and I think it works. So, we're going to start with a pound of red beans, and they're dry red beans. I have a 2-pound bag here. I like the Camilla beans, but you don't have to use those. You can use Walmart brand or whatever comes natural for you. Now look. The big thing about using dry beans, and a lot of people are scared of this. They're like, oh my God, it's going to turn out like little rocks in my thing. Not if you do what I'm telling you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a pound of these red beans. Now, like I said, I bought the 2-pound bag because I was being overly ambitious that day. You know how that happens. And it just seemed more economical to me. So you're going to take your dry red beans and you're going to dump them out into a colander, okay? Now, you're going to take that colander and you're going to rinse it. Whoops, escapee. You're going to rinse it under warm water. And what we're doing is we're trying to get any dirt off of them that might still be there and look for any rocks. Now, you're thinking, a big name company ought to be checking for this. Yeah, it slips through, trust me. You don't want the rocks. So what we're going to do is we're going to wash those red beans under some warm water real quick. And just kind of toss them around while we're washing them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a medium stew pot and we're going to fill it about 3/4 of the way full with water. Dump our beans into it. And we're going to put those on to boil for 15 minutes. So once it comes up to a boil them for 15 minutes. Then turn off the heat and put a lid on them for 1 hour. So I'm going to rinse my beans, get them going into the water. Let's go ahead and get my pot filling up now. But we're going to rinse our beans, put them into the water, and then we're going to boil them. And then I'll come back to you after we've gotten that process started, and I'll show you what all the seasonings we need are. And then we're going to cook those beans for about 3 or 4 hours more. So, this is one of those meals that's really done well on a Saturday, which today is for me. I do apologize to those of you who have been waiting to see a video. My whole house came down with COVID. And we're all vaccinated, have all our boosters, but stuff happens. It's a virus. It's going to get us anyway. So it took us a few weeks, about a month, to get better. And I'm feeling better now. So we're back and we're ready to throw some content your way. And pretty soon, I'm going to be doing a recipe for peanut butter fudge. I know, right? Ooh, peanut butter fudge. And we're going to be doing a recipe for homemade spaghetti sauce. From scratch, going at it. So, give me a few minutes to get these beans rinsed and get them into my pot and get all that going and get it boiled. And we'll cut away and come back to you 1 hour and 15 minutes from now, all right? All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll be back. Okay, folks, it's been 1 hour since our red beans finished cooking. And we are going to take our pot. And the next step, you'll notice that the inside of your pot, if you've used kidney beans, now I've been saying red beans. Red beans are kidney beans, not pinto beans. You are not making red beans and rice if you're putting pintos in here. So your water's going to be a real pretty dark crimson color. Now, that's expected. What we're going to do is we're going to take our beans, pour them off into a colander, and go ahead and get all of that old water out of the pot. If you leave a couple of beans in the pot, it's fine. Now, understand, they're going to look foamy And that is normal, okay? So if we've let our beans cook, the reason we did the 1 hour thing is so that you can cook them all in one day. You can take red beans, soak them in water overnight, do the same process without boiling them. And you can soak them overnight and they'll be just fine. Okay, so we've got our beans back in our pot. Now I only did 1 pound of red beans. You can adjust this recipe to be more or less or whatever. Now, once you've got these back in the pot, what we're going to do is now leave the foam in your colander. It's okay. All it is starch, and it'll help them thicken. Now, once we get done draining our red beans, we're going to add them back to the pot and cover them with about 2 inches of water. Now, you're thinking to yourself, why do I have to put that much water? Well, they're going to soak them up. And you may end up having to put more water in here as it goes. You do not want your beans to dry out. They will not cook right. You do that and you're going to have hard little rocks that you're trying to eat for dinner. Now, in covering mine in my stock pot, it makes it about half full. So, we're going to take that and I was about to put it back on the heat. You see me, huh? So, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to add all our seasoning to the beans now. So, the first step I always do is I put 1/4 cup of minced dehydrated onion. You can use fresh onion. If you are, it's about 1/2 of a yellow onion, diced up very fine. That onion is going to make it over the top in flavor, okay? The next step we're going to do is 1/4 cup of minced garlic. Y'all know, if you've been watching my program, you know I love minced garlic. Minced garlic is good for your heart, and it is just wonderful, and it really is an integral ingredient in red beans and rice. So we're going to do about 1/4 cup of minced garlic. I tell you, the hardest part of all of this is telling you folks exact measurements to make it come out tasting right. Because I am an old Southern cook, and I do things like my mama and my grandma did. And what they did was they put seasoning across the top of something, and when it looked right, it was right. There was no measuring involved in this. And if there was, that's because they were just following a recipe. Okay, next step that I always do is 3 tablespoons of Italian seasoning. Now what that has in it is oregano, basil, savory, sage. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. And these are going to make your beans very flavorful. So 3 tablespoons of that Italian seasoning. And you can just buy the regular old Great Value, it's fine. And then the next step, you can either use Tony Cacheres or you can use hot sauce. Now I put in the recipe Louisiana hot sauce because I like the flavor of it. If you want to use Tabasco, feel free. Nobody's going to fault you on Tabasco. But what you're going to want in this is 2 tablespoons. Now look, the trick to getting this to come out and not splash everywhere is you kind of rock it back and forth, and it'll fill up that tablespoon measure for you. All right, there's 1. It's a little slow process, but that's okay. Now, this, you can also add a bay leaf to it. I don't like adding bay leaf to red beans because once they start to thicken up, it's hard to get that sucker back out. Now, you could do the fancy thing and put it in a net bag, but that's just an extra step I just don't need a headache of. Now, I'm going to give it a quick stir with my spoon. You're going to want to be able to see a layer of seasoning on top. Then you know you have enough seasoning in there. Now, if you find this is too strongly flavored, you can cut back on that Italian seasoning. But I just really like the flavor of it, and I think it helps it. And I don't have to sit here and measure out a teaspoon of oregano, a teaspoon of sage, a teaspoon of basil, a teaspoon of savory. I'm not doing all that. Italian seasoning, trust me, it's your friend. Okay, so now that we've got all our seasoning on our beans and it got new water in it, so it's not all funky, and we've got our beans, they're fully washed and ready to go. We're going to put this back on the heat for about 4 to 6 hours. Now, I know you're thinking, oh my gosh. Now, first, turn it up on high, get it to a rolling boil. That's where you see it breaking the water with those bubbles. That's what rolling boil means. And once you've got it back up to a rolling boil, turn your heat down to about medium low. Let it get down to a simmer, and it'll set up really well. Now, this meal, if anybody ever went to public school in Louisiana, on Mondays, they always served us red beans and rice with sausage and cornbread. And usually something that looked like they went out there and took grass clippings, and it was usually greens. But I never ate that. Occasionally you get the nice school that fed you a salad with it, and that was nice. Okay, so know that the reason why they did this every Monday is because traditionally in South Louisiana, Monday's wash day. So Mama would put on a pot of beans and later put in her tasso and her sausage, and that became dinner. It was a dinner she didn't have to mess with too much. You only have to stir this maybe once an hour, and that's just to make sure all that seasoning gets to the bottom, okay? You don't have to do a ton of work on this. Now, the recipe I'm giving you with the 2 tablespoons of hot sauce is a mild beans. I always do mine mild because you never know who's going to show up for dinner. You never know if there's a kid who's going to be fussy and, oh, it's too hot. So I always do 2 tablespoons of hot sauce in my beans, because then if somebody wants it spicier, you can give them another hot sauce or the same with dinner, and they can do it to their taste. If you're somebody who can't handle anything hot, don't put the Tonys and the hot sauce in it. There is no shame in that. It's going to be okay. But remember one other thing. Other than anything you add, this so far has not had salt. So if you're not putting hot sauce or Tony Cacheres in it, you're going to need to add 2 tablespoons of salt to that, or your beans are going to be so bland, you'll be like, ugh. So that 2 tablespoons of hot sauce adds a bunch of salt in there, and that's going to help. Now you can also, like I said, you can add salt and pepper. There's no shame in that. You're going to want a stiff spoon. If you have a wooden one, that's traditionally what is used, but it's not the end-all, be-all of the world. You know, everybody does things a little bit different. Everybody has to, you know, I don't have a spoon here. There it is. Now, I like to use a spoon that has a kind of ladle edge to it, because you can really get in there and get at those beans. You can also use a slotted spoon if you choose. But once you start here and it start to get up, you're going to want to give those beans a good stir. Now, anybody who looked in the description and saw the list of ingredients may be asking themselves, what the heck is Tasso? Tasso is a Cajun spiced smoked ham product. I know if you're not in South Louisiana, you probably are not going to be able to find Tasso. I'm here in Texas, and there's not a lick of it in my Walmart, I'll tell you that now. Now, I might be able to go to a specialty store and find it, but I'm not paying specialty store prices for ham. So, if you don't have Tasso, I got you. You know those spiral sliced ham that by the end of Christmas you're tired of eating and you got about a quarter ham left? Put that puppy into a gallon-sized Ziploc and put it in your freezer. You can use a spiral sliced ham. You can even go and buy the ham chunks that are in the grocery store. They work too. If you're going to use the ham chunks though, and not something seasoned like this spiral sliced ham has a brown sugar glaze on it, I think. But if you're not using anything that has a glaze or some sort of flavor to it, go ahead and take your ham and roll it around in about a tablespoon of Tony Cacheres. That's going to give you that salt, that heat, and a little bit of flavor to it if you're just using plain old ham slices. Now, I've got a couple of little slabs of spiral sliced ham. You can see that in my little container that I froze because I knew I like to put this in like red beans. Some people put it in jambalaya or gumbo. You can use it in all three of those. Louisiana staples, pork products. So, we're going to go ahead. I can hear my water's just starting to get it. It's going to boil up in just a minute. And once it comes to a boil, we're going to reduce this down to medium low. Okay? Just to a simmer. You want it to be a fast simmer though. Okay? Not a slow simmer, not where you occasionally see a bubble. You want to see it kind of moving around. Otherwise, your beans are not going to cook in time for dinner. But the reason why Mama's made this on wash day is 4 to 6 hours later and you're going to have red beans. So it does take that long. Now, you can put these in a crock pot. I never do, but there's no shame in it if you have to work and you can't mind your beans. A crock pot will cook them just as well. You just have to take a few different steps. When you put your water in, put all your seasoning in and turn it back on, you're going to leave it there on low for about 4 to 6, even 8 hours. That's fine. But once you come in from work or whatever else you're doing, go ahead and get your Tasso or your ham and your sausage pieces in there. Now, I like to use Lil Smokies because I don't want to sit there and cut up a link of sausage. I'll admit it, I'm lazy. And Lil Smokies, nobody can say, you stole all the sausages. You can see the sausages in it. So they hold up, and I just like the fact that they're all there. And I do pound for pound. Pound of beans, pound of meat. That gives you a nice full red bean that has plenty of meat in it, because that's the thing that most people want. They want that meat too. So you're going to have that half pound of ham product, and that's going to go in there too. So if you put these in a crock pot or put them in a pot and left them all day on your stove while you went and ran errands, I don't recommend leaving a pot on the stove unattended. But if you did, I'm not going to judge you. But when you come in, the last hour of cooking is when that meat's going to go in. The meat is cured but not cooked. It means that it'll cook quickly. And that last hour of cooking, you're really going to want that for that meat to cook. And you're going to know your beans are at the point to put your meat in when you can take a spoon and cut down into them, and they give but are still a little stiff, if that makes any sense. So we're getting this on up to a boil. I'm going to keep stirring it while it's trying to boil, because I want to make sure my seasoning doesn't just sit on top and actually gets down into the water, because the beans will trap some of that. But I will say, I thank everybody who views my videos. Thank you so much. It means the world to me that I'm reaching people on some sort of level and that they're enjoying my cooking, hopefully. But if you do enjoy the content you see, or may want to see some more, We have a bunch of recipes up now. We've been doing this almost a year. And, go ahead and take a look at some of the other ones. If you enjoyed this video and you want to make sure that you can get back to it, or at least get back to the recipe, give us a like. And if you think this is the channel for you and you've learned something fun and exciting and tasty, consider subscribing to us. We appreciate all the subscriptions we have, and we appreciate everyone who views our videos. We're just doing this out of the kitchen. It's just a little home cooking with a little upscale twist to it. And, I just want to share things that I've learned to make in my lifetime. I am a self-taught cook. I did not go to culinary school. I've worked in a few restaurants, very rarely as the cook though. And I just learned to cook because I like to eat. And there is no shame in a woman or a man who likes to eat. So, and the old adage in the South is we feed folks who come over to our house. We think it's bad manners if somebody's hungry and we turn them away. There are worse things than that Southern value of making sure that your friend, your brother, a stranger has a hot meal, has a full belly when they leave your house. There are worse things in this world. We see a lot of things going on politically. We see a lot of things going on in the world that's just hateful. And I feel like I'm spreading some positivity here and showing you how to make something different for your family. And I hope that you enjoy my videos. And there are some people, I'm sorry, I'm getting choked up. There's some folks out there who, without them spreading the word and saying she really does know how to cook, that I would be lost without. I've named a few in the past, but I would definitely like to say I'd like to thank my wife, who is my camera woman. I would like to thank my roommate, who has always stood by me. He's been my best friend for 30 years. Randy Shaver, you are appreciated. And I'm just grateful that I have this platform to be able to bring some recipes that some folks have never figured out or just wanted to learn how to cook. If you're a little bear out there learning how to cook, I started cooking at 8 years old because my mama and my daddy worked. I was a latchkey kid. And if I wanted a hot meal other than a pot pie that was stuck in the oven, I had to cook it. And I cooked for my family at 8 years old. At 10 years old, I was putting food on the table when they got home from work. So for you little bears out there, you can learn to cook. And this is one of those recipes that with someone helping you with the knife work, if you're one of the younger kids, you can help mama make this. This is a kid-friendly meal. Most of it's in a pot on the stove. You just got to be careful you don't burn yourself. But please take care of yourselves. Take care of your family and your loved ones. You only get one chance in this life to hug your family. Both of my parents are gone. My dad always said, he said, well, if one thing, you're adaptable. And that was the nicest thing my dad ever said to me. He said, the world doesn't come crushing down on you. You don't have an ingredient, you make do with something else. You make a different meal altogether if it doesn't happen. It isn't an emergency to run out to the store. You'll go through the cabinets and come up and make me a meal that I'd swear I'd pay $25 a plate for. That was the nicest thing my daddy said to me. And he said that a year and a half before he passed. So, you know, just hug your loved ones and know that anything in life can take them from you. At the drop of a hat, nobody's time is guaranteed and nobody's time is certain. The only thing certain is your time will end. So just hug your loved ones, hug your babies, hug your grandbabies. I have 7 grandbabies that I don't get to hug because they live too far away. So just know that that this is one of those things you can make for your family, and it shows you love. I've always shown my love through cooking. That's why I'm a big old fat girl. But you know what? If there's one thing you can be guaranteed, I like to eat, and I like to eat good food, and I'm going to show you how to make it here. All right, folks, we've got our thing up to a boil now, so I'm going to turn it down to medium-low, and I'm going to let it simmer there for about 4 hours, and we'll come back to you. All right, hang tight. If you've stayed through all my tears and my lecture, hang tight. We're going to finish these beans up yet. All right, folks. Okay, folks, we're down to our last hour. Now, remember, I told you were going to get to a point where you're going to test your beans. I have a few out on my cutting board, and see, mine are nice and soft. They're good to go. You want them to have a little bit of firmness to them in that last hour of cooking, because that's when you're adding your meat. And if you find that your red beans are too soupy, you can either strain some of the liquid off, which you lose some of your seasoning doing that, or you can even take your spoon and kind of mash some of the beans, break them up a little bit, and they'll become that pastier texture like you get at Popeyes. All right, so we're at that point where we're going to add our meat. Now, remember I told you I like adding Lil Smokies because then I don't have to cut up a bunch of sausage. But if you're a purist, go ahead, feel free to get that link of sausage and get it all cut up like that. I myself am going to put this package of Lil Smokies into my mix, into my pot. And you can leave it on that little light simmer that it's on. And you're just going to very carefully, because if it splashes on you, it's going to feel like lava hitting you. Okay, so I got my sausages in there. And remember, I told you my secret ingredient is either Tasso or ham. And in this case, I can't get Tasso around here. So I have just some little cuts of spiral sliced ham that was leftover from Christmas. I've put it in my freezer and it's getting used in little ways here and there. So I'm just going to kind of dice it up, rough dice. Doesn't have to be huge pieces. It's going to break up a little bit in that pot. Now this is that end of the ham that isn't perfectly spiral sliced, so I get some little chunks out of it. And we're just going to roughly dice up some of that ham to throw in here, because that's going to add some flavor. Plus, it's another meat. You can make these vegetarian. Letting you know, in case anyone is on that journey, not putting the meat in there, red beans with rice is actually considered a full protein. So I don't know what it is about the red beans and the rice together, but it makes a full protein. Now some of my pieces are a little bit stuck together. Remember I told you this was that end of the ham that doesn't quite slice up right. But that's okay, you can tear them apart, it's pretty easy. And it, like I said, it's about a half a pound of ham. You can use the ham chunks that you'll find in your grocery section. Those are fine too. I just like using this if I don't have any Tasso. It adds another level of flavor, and it's just another pork product. So we're going to add this into our slightly simmering brew down here. and get as much of the goodies off the board as we can. And then we're going to stir all this in. Now understand, your meat is going to take up a little bit of that liquid. You don't want the liquid to be too much in here, but you also don't want your beans to dry out. So you need some liquid. By this point, your beans and your liquid ratio, it ought to be pretty much soaked up. And like I said, your meats are going to soak up some of that too. Now we're in that last hour, so in an hour we'll come back to you, and by then I'll have my rice and my cornbread muffins done, and we'll be almost ready to plate and eat. All right, folks, we'll be back soon. Thanks for hanging tight. Okay, guys, so our red beans are finally done. I put the meat in 1 hour before serving. So we're going to serve it up with a little bit of rice. And yes, I did microwave my rice. Don't come at me. It'll be all right. And it's minute rice too, so But anyway, sometimes you got to take your shortcuts, and we had to make a trip to the store because I realized I had no Jiffy corn muffin mix. And yes, I do make Jiffy corn muffins. Not everybody does, but I am that girl. So, I've got a lovely corn muffin. I've got my rice down in my bowl. Now look, if your, pause. I scratched my nose. Right. So also to let you know, you can, if you think your beans are too soupy, which happens if you maybe put too much water in, you can bring those beans back up to a boil without the lid. The lid is keeping that steam in there, and so it's recirculating all that water. So if you find your beans are a little too soupy, just bring them back to a boil and leave the lid off, and you're good to go. So I've got my rice down in my bowl. Let's get up some of these beans so you can take a look. Woo! Lots of meat. Got sausage in there. We like ours with a little bit of, a little soupier, generally. I like mine pretty thick, but I am not the only person in this house. So, just to let you know. And if you've ever wondered what the liquid is in the bottom of the pot, it's called pot liquor. Now, there is a very famous story about Huey P. Long going around, and he was telling people during the Depression how to eat and how to make their meals last that much longer. And what he told them was, when you boil your greens, save the liquid in the bottom of the pot for another meal. Crumble some cornbread in that pot liquor, and you can eat that as a meal. He's got a point. Waste not, want not, right? All right, folks, so let's get a look at those gorgeous beans. Got a bunch of sausage. You can see the ham in there. And that is one bowl ready to eat. Now, like I said, if you choose to add more hot sauce, feel free. It's okay. Not everybody eats it at the same level of heat. These are mild red beans made with the 2 tablespoons of hot sauce in the mix. But if you like it a little spicier, feel free. There's nobody to tell you how to make your beans. This was just a starter set. Call it a Cajun starter kit. So, from all of us at Bougie Comfort Food, Fred the cat, Abigail the dog, and our new baby in the house, Lovey the pit bull. And from my beautiful wife and camera woman, Cheshire Cat, we wish you a glorious day and a great rest of your week. Y'all take care and come on back and see us, all right? Bye now. Save a place for me.